Hello, everybody. This is Schmitty with another episode of Talkin Schmit. Today on the program, we have Spidey, Rick the Montrond. I would like to give a shout out to Skate Wagon, Jake Rupp. Thank you for the little package. Look at that depth of field on my Zoom. Wow. Also, a shout out to my Frank Out shirt. If you didn't know, if you're only listening, we do offer the podcast on YouTube. And I would love, if you're not a subscriber, for you to go over and hit the subscribe button. Chime in. We're doing live occasionally and, just trying to keep the hype going. So thanks for tuning in. Few messages from my sponsors, and then we'll have Spidey on the show. Cheers. Blood Wizard. Blood Wizard. Blood Wizard. Blood Wizard. Shop.bloodwizard.com.
Tickety tack.
Hey, it's Corey at Blue Plate, 3218 Mission Street. Come see us. Meatloaf, fried chicken, deviled eggs, Dollar Olympia beers. We're here every day of the week. We got a garden and we got smiles on our faces. Come let us make you happy.
And before we start, Lucero sticker going up. Hey, to all you guys making stickers out there, get the back with the slit on it so people can peel the sticker easier. For all you sticker connoisseurs, it's a little tricky when there's no slit down the back. There we go. Johnny. Also, shout out to SMFM. Wait till the end of the show when you'll hear Shane introduce a new band. And actually, my next guest came to mind when his band was in an earlier episode on SMFM. So thanks, Shane. Here's Spidey. Boom.
Hi, this is Spidey de Montrond, and you're listening to Talkin Schmit.
Hey. Talkin Schmit. I'm already not watching.
It's cool, like tonight is the night.
Damn, this is like the coolest thing I'm ever gonna do.
I wouldn't say it was fun.
What do you mean, bro? Christian Fletcher's younger brother.
Fuck the Dodgers.
Big dog's in. What do you think, Talkin?
We on? Schmitty?
Talkin Schmit.
Alpo macaroni.
Most of these guys, their opinion don't matter.
Talkin Schmit, right?
It's skateboarding.
I remember that.
Talkin Schmit. What are yuns doing?
Holy shit.
Skateboarding homies.
No, Schmitty, you can't jump in.
What is happening?
Let's hear it for Gregory.
Yes, we are.
Wi-Fi check 1, Wi-Fi check 2.
My next guest was in a band in a segment called On SMFM before this. But today we're going to interview him. And this is the one and only Spidey de Montrond. And he's in Laguna Beach.
Yes, California.
Dude, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So yeah, you were born in San Francisco. How long do you know, was it a hospital or in a house? Kaiser?
Yeah. Kaiser Pacific, yeah.
And did you live here at all or no?
I spent my first 8 weeks of life in San Francisco. My grandparents owned a community market on Cabrillo Street up the road from Playland at the beach.
Ooh.
Called Joe's Groceries. So my grandparents came to America in 1940, and then they went back to Israel for some reason, and then it wasn't working out. There was a lot of war and scuffle. Then my grandfather, the youngest male in the family, my Uncle Saul, they came to San Francisco. They found this business, and during those times, you usually stayed with the person who had the business to learn how to run the business, right? Because it's a community market. Where do you buy produce? How do you service the customers in the neighborhood? Because it's a neighborhood market. Even some of the people like Bryce Kanites and these other folks, when they found out I was born in the city, they go, wait a minute. And I go, well, my grandparents have Joe's Groceries. I met your grandparents. Right? Because they started that. I think they took over that. My grandfather took over the business somewhere in the, I have to check the records, early 50s or middle 50s, right in there.
Mm.
you know. So my mom was pregnant with me. She happened to be at my grandparents. And yeah, I spent the first 8 weeks of my life in the city. And then, of course, between Los Angeles and there, I'd always go back because my grandparents are there, right? And I got to go to Playland by the beach.
Yeah, give me some Playland intel because that was
Oh,
before my time.
Playland. Okay, so if you look at America during that time, every area has this amusement park funland, right? Where they have games of chance, roller
Mm.
coasters, um, sort of sideshow freak shows, bearded lady kind of thing. And it was a throwback going all the way back to the turn of the century or the 1800s. A lot of some of the rides are built out of wood, super rickety, kind of, very sketchy.
Mm.
Um, but Coney Island had their version, and then you had then throughout different areas. I know in California, Venice, right, had that, which later on fell down into the ocean and became an artificial reef for the Dogtowners to enjoy.
Mm.
And then you had the Long Beach Pike, which was another thing like that, which got destroyed. And Santa Monica Pier was like that. So you had these places around America that was like, hey, bring the family, was kind of good entertainment and fun. And then Playland started to become seedy. And then you have land developers going, oh, we need to knock this down. There's crime, there's corruption, there's drugs. And yeah, sure, that might have been true. But look what happened to Playland by the beach. They opened up a Safeway, which my grandparents were pissed about because that's going to compete with them. It's just the supermarket.
Right.
And there was these condos. Remember, condos was a new concept in the 70s, real estate concept. They're in the sunset and they're gray and they're ugly. And my sister made a life in San Francisco for over 40 years. And she says, yeah, I've actually looked at the condos upon visiting. They're still there and they're still ugly. But Playland by the beach encompassed many parts of that downtown Ocean Beach area. They had the Camera Obscura, of course, Seal Rock. There was the Cliff House, which was like the place to eat at one time.
Yeah.
The Sutro Baths was more like going to like Roman ruins. It was just the foundations of what was once there that got burned in the Great Fire and the earthquake and all that. And then there was other things there, like they had this slot car and train place that was under a large building, and you could bring your slot cars and be on different slot car tracks, and train enthusiasts that, it was a hobby, and people used to bring their cool trains and show them off and do races. And
Sick.
it was insane as a kid. You got to imagine, let's do the slot cars, let's go. And there's a dog eking out with you. And then they tore it down. I was so sad. I was probably like, I don't know, 5 maybe. I used to go there a lot because my grandfather, he believed kids should have fun. So he'd give us Kennedy silver dollars, and me and my sister would go down and be gone the whole day.
Damn.
They had a massive arcade that had these 3-story high windows that they used to open up with almost like a broomstick with a hook. And they had old games like you put a penny in. It was like the true penny arcade. And they had pinball games in the 50s and the 60s, no video games. You could be in there all day, dude. I used to be on a stool playing, and there was a person, their job was to take your money and click quarters out of this little belt that they had. It was a different time. San Francisco, different time. Real estate was a lot cheaper then, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. And my grandparents had their store there, until it was just too much. My grandfather passed, and my grandmother, my uncle ran it, and then it just became something that they leased out to families that wanted to run that thing. Where they lived was in the back of the store, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I learned how to bomb hills because of living there and in San Pedro in the 70s.
No, that's cool. I mean, I've lived in Northern California my whole life, lived in the city for like 20 some years, and all that stuff is like so valuable to me. I see photos of the Playland stuff and I'm always like, man, I wish I could have experienced it.
Well, as close as you can get, is it Pier?
Is it like the Beach Boardwalk maybe? Santa Cruz?
Yeah. But different because it was so antiquated. The best thing about Playland to me was the fun house. Okay, the thing was all made of wood. It was made in the 20s. I think the only lasting thing that's from the Playhouse is Laughing Sal, which is at Pier 34. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Or no,
She's still
Pier 39, right?
no 39. Yeah, she's still housed in there, and they have these what they call the Zelensky Wurlitzer band in a box almost. It's where the piano plays, and they've got like trumpets.
Yeah,
They
dude,
used to
I've
go
been
like a
there.
nickel and a dime, and it'll play like an old timey song, like "My Old Gal Sal," or something like that, or "The Lady in Red." And I love that stuff. So when you went to the fun house, it was gnarly just to get in.
Really?
Well, Laughing Sal scared the piss out of you. She's just this wooden thing going, yeah, ha, ha, ha. It's just creepy. And then upon getting in, there were these things, they were called spinning tops. And they were about chest high to an adult. And they spun, and they were just canvas covered wood made of concrete. And you would get battered around this room trying to make it through this maze of tops. Some people sat on them. And then there was the Hall of Mirrors. People would freak out in that because they'd get claustrophobic, or would get really narrow. Then finally it opened out. If you made it through that, you get into the funhouse. They had this massive wooden slide. It looked like it was 4 or 5 stories high, and you get on these burlap sacks, and you'd fly down this thing. And of course, me being adventurous, I would skip lanes with my sister and go super fast, and they want to kick you out. Then there was this wooden disc, massive wooden disc. People would sit on it, it would spin and throw everybody in various directions. It's super sketchy, highly litigious stuff, right?
Yeah.
There was this floor that had rollers on it. People would fall on their back, and these other floors would do this and blow air or water. It's just, this is what people thought was fun in the mid-20s, but it still existed into the early 70s.
Hmm. Well, let's talk about skateboarding.
Sure.
When and how did that all begin? I'm guessing the 70s also, yeah?
I stepped on a skateboard probably somewhere in 73 in a beach community called Cabrillo Beach in San Pedro, which is very hilly like the place I was born. I learned how to ride in San Pedro and Cabrillo Beach in 1974, and I started what most people do is bombing hills, because that's what's there in schoolyards. The hills, you go straight, you get speed wobbles, so I learned how to surf the hills. I would learn how to control my speed, and being a goofy foot, I would wear out my toe and heel because that's my brake on a non-kicktail board, So when I'd visit my grandparents, I go, I'm going to go skateboarding. My mom and my grandparents do not have any idea what I'm up to. I'm bombing the hills around there and riding through Golden Gate Park and discovering what's rideable and what's not, Yeah. So that I started there, and that's how I started. If I didn't live near a beach community, I think I would have probably started skating a lot later.
Were you raised in San Pedro?
I was raised all over the place. I lived in Los Angeles proper, off 3rd and Vermont, adjacent to Silver Lake. This thing is called Shadow Park, SHTTO Park, which is close to downtown LA. So I lived there from like 1 to 4, and then at 5 years old, I lived in Southgate for 1 year. And then after that, we moved to San Pedro. But it reminded me of the city because of the port, and the foghorns, and the hills, and the big ships coming in. Totally. And the only thing that San Pedro had that San Francisco didn't have was tide pools. Or I didn't know where to find them, And of course, San Pedro's a lot different. It's definitely a port town. It doesn't have that European city feel that San Francisco has, obviously, because the gold rush built that area up like gangbusters. There was no gold rush, San Francisco wouldn't have been what we've known it today, because that really financially set San Francisco up to be a leading city in America.
For sure. Yeah. In the early days, it seems to me the Black Knight board was it like kind of the only legit board for a while, or were there other boards that were competitive of it?
Well, the Black Knight is a board that came to prominence in the 60s. That was the actual first board I ever rode.
Yeah, that's what everyone kind of says.
You get it at a toy store, right? You get it at a toy store. I rode that because the kids in the complex where we lived in San Pedro had one, and that's what I rode. And then months later, going into 74, there's a guy who's cruising the hill a little bit, but I notice his board isn't making any noise. And I notice he isn't slipping out when he's doing these low, pivotal, full-on Jerry Lopez, Larry Bertelman, like getting rad. And I go, how is your board not making any noise? I'm a little kid. He goes, Cadillac wheels, brother, try it out. I was like, what? Oh my God, what a difference. Urethane, right? What it's just a complete paradigm shift. I wanted a board so bad. So I begged my mom. She didn't want me to skate. And her and my father were like sort of separated. So I called him and I pulled the dad card and he says, "How much do you need?" And he wrote me a check and I went to a surf shop and bought one.
Rad.
Yeah.
So urethane, when they first came out, Cadillac, were they the originator of it, or were there
Well,
other?
I think what happened is Frank Nasworthy discovered a use for urethane, and then there was Cadillac, there was Stroker, and all these other. This is pre-sealed bearing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and in my experience during that time, there wasn't a skate shop. I went to the surf shop to buy a board.
Mm.
They had a little section with boards. I mean, even in Huntington Beach, I went to the Infinity surf shop to buy a skateboard because my other one got jacked. It's just they would get ruined because I was just pushing it to the max on everything.
How many people do you think are skating in this era? Is it kind of like pretty big, or is it pretty small?
I mean, in the beach, when you live at the beach, it just seems that's what people do. It's just
Hmm.
part of being there. When it's flat, people skated. People, because of urethane, I saw more people charging the hill. I saw more people going for it in the schoolyard. That there was no skate park. So it's like these clusters of people would end up here and there. I'm sure it happened in San Francisco, right?
Hmm.
It's just the wheel, right? Changed everything. And then when I moved away from San Pedro, I moved to Monterey Park, and it's the first time I saw Skateboarder magazine. Greg Weaver was on the cover.
Mm.
I was like, whoa, the weave, man. I want to get rad like that. So then you start searching out, I started searching out pools or the reservoirs. And again, no skate park yet, at least not where I lived. Where I lived, the second skate park would be built. The first one was in Carlsbad in California. The second one, I think, was in Montebello. It's around early 76. And so in 76, the park started sprouting up. But, you know, I started to search those terrain out, and you can because I live in a concrete jungle. I live in
Mm.
Los Angeles County. I mean, it's not like how Northern California is organized. You know what I mean? At one time, maybe in the 30s, it might have been, or the 40s, there's more green belt, but you have to leave LA County to see more greenery. Like as you go up, through the central California or the coast where you see, Cambria and these places like that. But
Mm.
I started seeing more clusters. Definitely in 75, it was on because there's sealed bearings. There's Road Rider 4s. There's these oak boards with wedge tails, and there's trucks. There's like tracker trucks. Oh, cool. Chicago trucks are bogus because they break and the axles bend. And,
Mm.
so as equipment's changing, it seemed like there seems to be more people. Plus, it was in the media more. Like you'd see the LA Times not promoting it, but just going, oh, it's very dangerous. And also on TV saying it's the greatest trend, skateboarding, which makes it available to people who should not skate. I had this conversation at the beach yesterday surfing. I said, the 70s was filled with like terrible accidents at the skate park. I'd see people, compound fractures. You got to understand, they're going with bell bottoms and wedge like trainer shoes and have never surfed nothing. No, and they're just like, oh, it's this great new sport. I want to try it out. And they'd get hurt pretty bad. Also too, they used to test you at the skate park. They had a person who'd vet for you, like give you a test to see where your level is at. And then you were kind of stuck in that area and they'd retest you. But
Oh,
then that faded away somewhere, I think, after
that's crazy.
set mid 77, late 77. I didn't see none of those guys anymore. But yeah, they used to kind of give you a test in the early days. Well,
It's
I mean, you got to understand too. It actually is kind of a good idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm blown away by people that, I mean, a lot of times it's drinking that gets it happening, but like people that don't know anything about it that try to drop in like they've never even been on a
Oh,
skateboard, and you're like, this is not going to go good. Like, how do people look at it and not know it's dangerous? Like, it's not easy.
well, the skate park, most of the early skate parks were like, I mean, they're taking ideas from skiing or whatever, the snake run, like berms and curves and surfing. So
Mm.
yeah, there's some danger, but not as heavy as like say when Upland was built in 77.
Yeah.
No, Upland is, I tell people it is the bonsai pipeline, the Chopu, the Waimea Bay of its time. If you're a professional and you don't ride it, if you're a sponsored am and you can't ride it, thumbs down to you. Sorry. You know, I mean, when I looked at it, my heart sank in somewhere in I think it was the winter of 78. Neighbor took me. I walked up to where the full pipe was in the full pipe bowl, and you see it in the mag, and it looks terrifying in the mag. Well, when you see it in person, my stomach went, oh, my heart just, I looked at it. I was a little kid just going, oh, wow. Okay. Looking into it, I had a GNS, I think Warp 2, Powerflex 5s, tracker mid tracks. And like looking at it and going, wow, okay. Go to the snake runs, ride the snake runs, which were terrible. But I started at the bottom, and in my mind at the time, I figured if I can ride this, I can ride anything.
Yeah.
So I worked my way up in the park,
So
I took the bounces. Yeah, but because it's so daunting, the 15-foot bowl, then later on comes, the combi pool, that crazy coping and that how deep it is. I think it's 14 feet. I don't know. Salva says that the round had more vert than the square, which to me was interesting because it shows you how powerful your mind is. In my mind, I always thought the square had more vert. So that's a running concept in my head that governed how I would ride the bull, and the actual geometry and depth of what it is, because he's more familiar with it. He goes, oh, you got it wrong. I was like, wow. Shows you how powerful your mind is, because in my head I thought, oh yeah, that one's got more vert than the round, so I can cut loose a little harder in here.
I did more stuff in the round than the square. The square seemed way scarier.
Okay, the square, right. The square, because of that north wall, they called it, dropped because they didn't cure the pool long enough, because I was told that Stan Hoffman was impatient because he wanted to have the Hester happen at a certain time. So they drained the pool too early. So Salva said that the wall dropped. So when you're going in this wall, they call it the north wall, it pitched you to the drain because it fell forward. It wasn't completely parallel with the other wall at equidistance. It was, so only the corners, about 3 or 4 feet into the corners on that wall are usable, or you'd have to skip that whole area. You can see footage. Classic example is Steve Stedham, or anybody. Is
that the one where Chris Miller hung up, that wall?
Chris Miller hung up in the corner. He didn't hang up at the wall.
Right.
The wall is going to be going eastward. Right. The wall pitches everybody. You can look at footage from the Hester in 79. People go like this and they go, oh, and they lose all their speed. The dog bowl had the same kink near the hip. Had a kink that basically took all your inertia out of you. Now, if you did a trick and you landed, you're going down a wall and you're expecting to catch the wall, but the wall is pitched out this way. So you're going pop. Oh, you don't actually touch it. And when you do, you buckle, or you hit the bottom, or the wall just throws you to the bottom. So everybody, if you look, they avoided that wall. So that really made that section of the pool very difficult to skate and to get to certain other walls. The round was more negotiable because of that reason. The round, according to Steve Alba, who I trust because he was there, helped make that happen, that pool. He said it had more vert in it. But my mind had a different idea, and I went with that. And I guess upon hearing it years later, I go, wow, my mind is so powerful. It just convinced the hell out of me.
Who ran Upland?
The Hoffman family, Stan and Jean, lovely people. They cared about skateboarding. They cared about skaters. It was a family-run business. Don was there. The other brother, I think his name is Chris. Super, super great people. Lovely family.
Right.
Salt of the earth type folks.
Okay. And was that era, like, if you mentioned you moved around a bunch, were you starting to form a crew, or are you more of a solitary guy?
I mean, we moved around a bunch, so like I make new friends wherever I go, right? Like I started to go to Montebello, and then we're leaving Monterey Park after 2 years and living there. My mom was a teacher, and they would transfer her. And she was an educator with a master's degree, and she would get every time she transferred school, we'd move somewhere else. So it was almost like I'm in the army with, I'm an army kid, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not. So we left Monterey Park, which was close to Montebello. That's how I went to that park. And then I live in El Monte, which is to me horrific. I start building ramps in the fall of 76. I have a long driveway, like little quarter pipe things so I could ride. Then I have to figure out, how do I get to the skate park now? Well, I had to find people that were into those kind of things, and I did. They were older than me, and they were also my ride to the beach sometimes to go surfing. So those guys became my crew from, like, say, late 76 going into sort of 79. But remember, they're older than me, so they're either going into the armed forces, or they're going into their lives or jobs, serious girlfriends, or college. So those people leave at some point, 79, 80, they're gone, you know? And then I have to find another crew. But my biggest crew is the Rapid Transit District, the bus. The bus is my friend, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I start learning how to use the bus to get to skate parks.
With transfers and everything.
All of it, yeah. Probably end of 78, 79, because some of the older guys like to, I'm not against that, but some people like to smoke marijuana and weed. I wasn't that kid. I wasn't a party kid. I just wanted to get good and go to contests. So I started taking the bus. I learned how to use the bus. And then, I get injured twice. My sister went to school at UCSB, so I used to go to Sparks Goleta.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was a park on Stork Road by student housing. So I'd surf in the daytime with the local dudes and skate at night with the guys. And I did about, I don't know, I skated the place probably about 5 or 6 times, but I met Doug de Montmorency, who gave me a 9.0 taper kick to take home to LA, because he heard about my last name. And he goes, "Hey, our last names are close." Like, I'm de Montrond, he's de Montmorency.
Uh-huh.
Cool guy. One of the most stylish people I ever saw skate. I skated with him. I skated with a guy named Eric Halverson, who rode for Hout. He was like a mentor guy to me, and a guy named Scott Negron, who's a local ripper there. And then there's the other guys who would go on into skating in different ways. John Detman, and then Rob Washburn, who still works for Powell.
Yeah.
I worked with Powell at Sparks when I was 12. Another guy, Jeff Cruteau. These are the Santa Barbara guys that were around at the time. But I rode Sparks. I got injured at Sparks twice. I split my chin. I had a hairline fracture in 79. Took me out of competition. I was starting to get good at Sparks. They had enough where you could go, okay, I'm going to learn it in the tub bowl. I'm going to learn the keel. I'm going to take it to the kidney, because, each bowl was a little bigger and more gnarlier. So, and then in 1980, I re-injured myself at the Whittier Aspo in the kidney. I dropped in the shallow end and I refractured my arm. So I was out for 2 contest seasons.
Fuck.
I was getting good. No, it's all right. I skated with the cast on, but, people probably aren't stoked on that, but I did. I learned a lot of Ollie tricks because I couldn't grab my board, right? So I learned lean air. I learned, I perfect frontside Ollies, fakie Ollies, cavalier, all these things. And I start competing again in earnest in 81 at the ASPO, Association of Skate Park Owners. Essentially what they did was, from 79, 80, and 81, they had a contest series called ASPO, and you would hit all the parks. And you would have different age divisions, and, like, let's say, it's 1A, 13 to 14, or 2A, or park team, or sponsored. So I did that. ASPO was a big thing at that time.
Was that kind of like that was after Hester series, like something similar?
No. Hester went 78, 79, and I think ASPO started in 79. And there was other competitions that were around. I mean, I used to enter little parking lot contests, like in 77, like 360, slalom, high jump. They had obstacle course, and basically some orange cones with a little tube. You go like this in early contests.
ATV skaters were different in those days.
It's just different, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a talk with somebody. I said a lot of events just shrank. Like, they're like 360's gone. Freestyle still in place. Bank slalom. Obviously you need a bank slalom course. Tight slalom, giant slalom, downhill. Well, like, all that stuff just started to fade. It was just like, okay, everything's focused on pools. All right, cool. But there was a few of these kind of events that would happen here and there, like the Capitola Classic, or the Catalina Classic, and Capitola had their downhill. But I noticed it just started fading as the 70s wore on. And then when you got into the 80s, you still had freestyle, and there was a few parks left over. I remember the last bank slalom contest I entered was the Upland Christmas Classic, and we did it in their like ditch reservoir thing that fed into the 15 bowl, and that was the last bank slalom. We could have done it at Del Mar. They had a bank slalom situation, but it seemed like contests were just freestyle and vert. So it's either the ramp, the couple parks that are left over, freestyle, and then there's street style. What's street style? Everybody, okay. Street style is like
Freestyle's ramps for some reason.
well, street style is
Jump ramps.
I mean, I'll go back to it's just doing vert tricks on curbs and launch ramps, which are basically like parts of a bowl. You're flying out. If you look at, and I want to make this distinction, I try to tell people this to think of this a lot. Pre-handrail. It's like the 540, pre-540. Pre-handrail is a great distinction because it's the Wild West. What is this contest format about? What is it about? Okay, there's some curbs. Okay, I remember John Lucero and Richard Armijo and Whittier when they got kicked out for being too aggro. They were in the parking lot doing slappies and inventing street tricks, right? But they were doing vert tricks on a curb that was outside of Whittier. Stesic did an article on them, I think, in that period. But now you go to a flat area, you're pushing around. Okay, you're trying to figure it out, right? But it's pre-handrail. And the stationary Ollie isn't completely developed until Mullen at a Whittier contest. Stacy brought him out every once in a while, and he was in the flats of our bank freestyler at Whittier Skate City. And he started just going like this, maybe 3-6 inches. Well, by the time the sun is setting, he's gone nearly kneecap to thigh high. I never seen anybody do that. And we all turned around and looked at him and went, oh my God, what Rodney's doing. We all go down there, get Stacy running it, look at Rodney, and he's all nervous. No, do it again, bro. Do it again, Rod. Can you go forward and do it? He's going like this, right? Can you go like this? I don't know. No, come on, try, And so now everybody's on their park boards trying to go like this. Right? We're trying to go high like what he's doing.
Yeah.
And Christian's like, we need to do that, but then go like this, which makes sense, right? So the stationary Ollie changes from something you do on vert to something you can do on flat ground in a vertical sensation where you got like, at least 3 feet. Well, there's a lot of possibilities there. So now that thing changes street style skating. If you can do that, you can Ollie up on the bench now. You don't need to kind of get your hand on there or shove yourself up. But again, it's pre-handrail. So this all leads to what will be street skating. So during that window, it's the Wild West. A lot of people enter street contests to get sponsored, where otherwise, if some of those participants would have entered a vert contest, no way. Especially at a place like Upland, they couldn't cut it. And that's just how it was. It's okay. So it leaves an open window for certain types to participate in a skateboard contest, or maybe even go pro. Pre-handrail.
Right.
It's a great distinction to make, because someone asked me to go, well, why do you think you got a model? I said, well, Santa Cruz, probably during that time, I placed first at the Santa Barbara Street Style in 85, and I beat Nadas and Gons. Nadas got second. I just didn't happen to fall. I said, it's pre-handrail, though. I want you to know this, okay? This is a great distinction. I got first place at the Upland Pipeline Castle in one of the worst things that Upland had to offer, which is the pipe and the pipe bowl. And I beat my close dear friend, God rest his soul, Jeff Grosso, and he was the guy to beat as a sponsored am. If you're going to go vert, you have to deal with Jeff. Jeff was a fantastic vertical skater. He was so good, and this is before he had his substance abuse problems, so he was solid. You know what I mean? Unless he really screwed up, you're getting second. You know what I mean? You just are. And I beat him fair and square, and we were friends. And he loved that I beat him, because this is a funny story. He goes, I think you beat me. I go, nah, we were alone away, like on the banks course. He goes, you beat me, dude. That's good. I prefer that to Nash. I go, why? Oh, I won't hear the end of it for 6 months to a year, dude. I'll keep saying, I beat you. So I'd rather you do it, and it's rad. And he goes, there you go. You got first place. I'm taking you out to dinner. I go, awesome. We were good friends. He was stoked, but he didn't want Nash to beat him, because he just Nash would rub it in like.
Yeah. That's funny.
But it was a long time ago. We were teenagers, like in our late teens.
Mm.
Yeah, but so I was telling a person, I said, look, I placed first in these two contests. In vert, I usually did like top 10, top 5. I got third at the Massacre in Tahoe, and I would get about, anywhere between fifth, in the top 5 in street style. But I happened to get first these two contests, and they said, hey, look, we think we should do a model. So I think based on that information, maybe they felt it was a good time to do it, because it used to be you had to get first in a pro contest.
Okay.
And that there's a big difference. I talked to Salva about this, and I go, the 70s, get first in a pro contest, get them all. It goes, right. So Rob Roscop got first place in the Midwest Melee.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He beat everybody. And he stayed with me. He had that big Dwayne. He had a notch in, which later on would have 2 notches in his model. But he got first. He got first as a professional skateboarder. He creamed everybody, and he got a model. Now, if you look at that time in Santa Cruz, the 80s, for the exception of Jason Jesse, which is a little after my time, even though I knew Jason, I'd left skating by then.
I skateboard, but I'm an artist. I love art, and I love you.
No one on the team, the Santa Cruz brand, had gotten to first place as a pro. Rob's the only one.
Mm.
So I want to make that distinction. Rob was one of the greatest skaters on the team during that time.
Interesting. What about Dressen? He wasn't on there yet.
Well, no, this is later. Dressen, all those guys got into the NHS umbrella through speed wheels and stuff. Dressen is after my time. I leave skating professionally, I think, end of 88.
Oh, okay.
Beginning of 89, I get my last check. I'm done. I'm already working on film sets. But so I don't
Dressen's on Dogtown in that era.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying is if we go by the model of the 70s.
So who are you talking about? Jeff Kendall? Who are the guys? Who are the pros at that time?
Roscoe, Kendall,
Corey O'Brien.
He's after my time, but yeah.
Okay.
Keith Meek actually proved himself in street style. If you look at the Capitola street style.
Hey, this is Keith Meek, and you're listening to fucking Talkin Schmit.
He beat Roscoe.
Is that real?
I think he got 6th or 7th.
Okay.
But again, this is pre-handrail, so but beat people fair and square. It's a contest, right? That's how it rolls. Look at Steve Olson. I looked at the results. I think the other day, I think he got 5th.
Wow.
In the Capitola street style, which requires, it's different because remember, it's on that hill, right? And you got those launch ramps that they kept reusing in some car to stick in the middle. And, people are trying to figure it out. Like someone said, what do you think is a requirement to get a model? I said, during that time, I don't know, but I'm taking a pot shot guess. It's like in my situation, I placed first in 2 different disciplines. So they thought, okay, maybe, he's marketable. Maybe we'll take a risk, right?
Yeah. I mean, in that era, there wasn't really
pre-handrail.
Yeah. And it's not really like nobody's filming a video part, and you're not going to have photos in the mag unless you do an interview or win contests or do contest.
But the thing, as an amateur, I got ink, brother, and those are free ads. My parents used to run a boating and yachting magazine. And I was aware of media production. Every photo of me is a free ad for my sponsors and associated products with me, whether it's Quicksilver, Converse, Independent, all that. So I was aware of that. So there was a meeting of the minds there. But during that time, pre-handrail, it's like the wild, wild west. You could get a model and, companies are trying to figure it out too. So they're taking a chance on this guy. Bryce got first place at San Francisco street style. He's in the mag. He's around town. People know who he is. He's a good guy. He skates well. Give him a model. All right. We'll give this guy a model. We need sometimes they don't even place in a contest. You need somebody riding your board.
Right.
Yeah. That could be a thought that I could see happening. Like, he looks good. Get some rad shots. We'll give him a model, see how it goes.
How did you get the name Spidey? Do you remember who coined it?
Yeah. So John Lucero is the one who coined it, Spidey. What happened was there was Spider Monkey, Neil Blender, Lance, Steve Keenan, Eric Castro. I have long legs and long arms.
Uh-huh.
I ride, it's like this, right? There you go. My daughter, when she was 5 at the Vans Park and started skating a little bit with me, she wanted to skateboard. she started laughing hilariously on her back. And I go, what's up? She got on her board and started imitating me. So Lance was skating around the flats with her mountain going like this. I go, she figured it out. I go, yeah, she did. I go, that's why they call me that pumpkin. So
That's amazing.
but John is the one who just made it into Spidey.
Okay.
Sarah, he's the one.
So it's been 3 months since I started the Magic Mind journey, and I gotta say, I think it's helping me. Seems like with all these projects I've been working on for Thrasher, and my podcasts, and the life at home with Doug and my wife, I honestly feel more focused than I can remember in a long time. It's easy for me to add into my daily too. Every morning right after coffee and my walk, I take a shot of the Magic Mind, and then I'm off to work. So yeah, I've teamed up with them, and together we're offering a Magic Mind subscription to all my Talkin Schmit listeners. Go over to magicmind.com/TalkinSchmit and use the code TalkinSchmit20 or TalkinSchmit20. The code gives 20% off on one-time purchases and a 48% discount on subscriptions. I'll include the link and code below in the description, but get out there and put some magic in your mind with Magic Mind.
Tell him you heard it from Schmitty on his podcast.
Is it true that your first photo published, was it in Thrasher?
It would be in Thrasher because there was no other magazine.
Who were like the photographers there? Was it just MOFO and KT at that time?
MOFO was the main person. Kevin Thatcher also shot photos.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bryce might have been working there.
Okay.
Contributing. Sometimes the R&D guy at Santa Cruz, he was team manager, many hats. Tim Pumarda would shoot. But the main characters, when it was just Thrasher, Mo, KT, Bryce, Stesic, Friedman used to contribute. But
that's right.
The only people that shot pictures of me that, and Keenan, Steve Keenan. Keenan would come a little later.
Did you ever meet Fausto?
Oh, of course, yeah. I used to tell Novak, I go, he owns the bakery. He doesn't own the brand. He owns the foundry.
Uh-huh.
He owns the bakery. He doesn't own the brand. You know, I was told, many times by different people like, wow, man, they make a lot of money in indie shirts. I mean, even my daughter in the 2000s, when she was going to middle school, she was, can you get me an independent hoodie?
Yeah.
Oh, what? Why? Well, you skated for him. I go, what, are you on the internet or something? You looking me up? She goes, come on, I know it. So I called, I think Rhino. I said, hey, my kid. He goes, no problem.
Nice.
Yeah. I see, when you wore something like that during our time, that meant you were part of the tribe. Now I can't tell who's what. Like you saw a Thrasher shirt, that was unusual because there was no money in the game. It was very underground. It didn't start showing money until about late 84, late 85, and as the 80s grinded on. But it wasn't like you saw some normal or regular person, I hate to say that, mainstream person wearing a Thrasher shirt.
Yeah, no, I know it very well. I tell the story a lot, but I went to Disneyland a couple of years ago, and I was like blown away by, like, we were playing a game, like, how many Thrasher shirts can you count? And it was just mind-boggling because, I mean, I started skating later than you, but I did start in an era where, like, when you heard wheels come down the street, you were like, who is it? Like,
who is it? Yeah, I know. I still have that feeling when I can hear him.
But now it's just everybody.
Yeah, it kind of is everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah, working at Thrasher, I always have like, interest in MOFO. Bryce was a huge inspiration for me.
Yeah,
and obviously getting to know Fausto and Eric before they passed and stuff was
sure.
It's cool to have those roots in me that I can be like, yeah, I knew these guys a little bit, but to hear more stories about, when I look at old contest footage, I always see Fausto at the contest. Like he seemed like
there.
He was there.
He was there. He would show up a lot. Eric, not so much sometimes. But Fausto was there. Fausto loved skating. He just did.
Yeah, it was, you could tell.
Yeah, he loved it. He enjoyed it. His background in performance, automotive sports, I think probably that played a part in that. He appreciated what people were doing, and it was exciting for him. He enjoyed it. One thing was at what was it? Lockett Lance's was a media event. You look back in the old mags, and he was like, the Montrond.
You better do something good so you get a picture in the magazine.
While I was skating, I was like, is that what you call that thing? It's printed on newsprint. It's not even a Mustang stock. Please give it a break, dude. And I was skating. And so this person walks up to me. I don't know who they are. It was Stesic. And Stesic goes, hi, my name's Craig. Hi, Spidey. Hey, you handled V really well there. That's how I met Stesic, because I basically wouldn't take any kind of commentary from Fausto, and I rebutted him with something that had nothing to do with like, hey, screw you, old man, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Totally.
I actually was talking about something that was true. It was factual, but most skaters don't know that. And so Stesic and I started up a friendship based on that commentary, and we're still friends to this day. And yeah, Craig's an interesting guy.
No, Craig's the best.
He's fascinating.
He's a huge part of why Thrasher is.
I would imagine so. He would be at every contest and he would just talk to me. How's your mom? What books you reading lately? He wants to know what's in my head. It's fascinating.
He used to hang out at the mag a lot. He did a lot with Juxtapose, the art magazine there.
I've heard of that. Yeah, I don't know much about it though.
So I know Craig pretty well. Him and Fausto were really tight for a while, and then I think something happened. But
right.
Who on Santa Cruz, like in that era, would you travel with guys? Was it like
sure.
Like would you room with somebody constantly? And
sure,
like
it depends on what happens. Like I traveled with Roscop and Meek.
Okay.
I already know what Rob's like because he spent like 3 weeks, maybe more, at our house with me and my mom, you know, before he left to start his life in Santa Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
I'd stay at Rob's place and Meek's place a lot when I'd go up there. I traveled with, when Grasso finally got back on Santa Cruz again, I traveled with Jeff because we're close by and we just know, I've known Jeff since he was 12.
Okay.
So I traveled with him. And when Salva started to make his comeback, I traveled with Steve. I've traveled with Kendall.
What's one of your favorite trips that you can recall, like skating wise?
Oh God, there's so many of them. My favorite trip is the one that I put together that really was funded by my grandmother and my mom. I went to Europe in 1984. My grandmother, coming from a Mediterranean European background, her thing was like, a young man should tour Europe before he goes to university, right? That's what people do in that culture that she's from.
Mm-hmm.
So I had money from a bar mitzvah and from graduating high school. And I had this idea rolling around. So I was talking about it with Steve Keenan, and John Lucero wanted to go. So we all went to Europe right after the Eagle Rock ramp contest. And we were gone for, I don't know, a little over 3 months. I traveled more extensively than John, because John stayed behind in England with Danny Webster because he was really enjoying himself and digging London. And then I went across the pond with Keenan and, you know, did demos, did contests, did sessions with people, just, you know, all in Holland, Switzerland, and Luxembourg. And I stayed with Klaus for, I don't know, at least a month.
Oh yeah, Klaus.
And then I broke off on my own and I did demos in Milan, in Rome, in Genoa, and then I just traveled by myself, and then I worked my way back up to the base we had in London. But that was the best I skated as far as vert skating goes. I don't know what happened to me when I got back to the States. Yeah, I just didn't skate the same.
Huh.
No, but that was my favorite trip because it was such a great time. A lot of laughs, a lot of new friendships made that I still have to this day. You know,
Nice.
House and I were still friends, and some of those guys I still know. Dobie Campbell and the English skaters, Bod and Douglas I met. They were, you know, I was 18. I think they might have been 14 or 15.
Mm.
You know, and then they came over and stayed with me and my mom. And you know, we hosted them. But that was, you know, one of my favorite trips. I'd been on so many skate trips with Gross. You know, there was a classic one where I remember the first NSA, they called it Border Wars. It was in Vancouver, Canada, and Pribble and Kendall were staying with me because Pribble used to stay the summers with me after we became friends. Like he'd call my mom. I'd be in school. Sylvia, I'm driving out, right? From Indiana. And I'd come home and Pribble's all, one more week of high school and we're done with this shit. I go, yeah, because he would get out earlier than me. That's just how it was. He was in college. And when we got Kendall on the team, of course, Kendall stayed with me, and there was this Canada contest, and Pribble's all, Spides, how do we go into the contest? I go, well, I don't know. He says, well, let's just fucking drive there. I'm all like, what? Really? You got to understand that these guys drive a lot because they're in the middle. And he's like, look, we get out a map. He says, okay, from here to the border of California is about 16 hours, and the rest are 4-hour states. And then we're over the line and we're there. It'll take us about a day and a half, 2 days of travel. 2 days of travel easy. So I call NHS. I go, look, Canada. He says, well, what are your thoughts? Pribble's like in the back going, come on, man. I said, look, all three of us are going to get in Bob's car. If you can give us money for food, entry fee, and he's going to drive. Really? I think we can do that. Why don't you guys do this? Why don't you come up, drive up to NHS, load the car up with equipment and stuff. We'll get you cashed out and you guys go. That was a fun skate trip, except for one thing. Pribble's AC didn't work.
Oh.
And he had a diesel Rabbit, and so he had to turn the heater to cool the car down. And we're going over Grants Pass, and it's just like, we're dying in the car. We take breaks and jump in some ravine or whatever. But honestly, once we got to Vancouver, it was like the air conditioner was turned on. Because the climate's cooler, even though it's summer.
Yeah.
But all in all, with all that stuff, it was a great trip.
Damn.
It was a fun trip, and the ramp was kinked, of course, because back then they didn't kind of sometimes build super great ramps. No, but we went. It was fun. It was great to be in a different country and to enjoy the foods and kind of be tourists and stuff. And it was a long drive, but it was a fun trip because we got nothing to do. We got the whole summer. What are we doing? We're going to drive up to Vancouver and skate. And on the way down, we'll skate whatever we can find. And we'll end up in Santa Cruz and stay for a while. And then we'll head back to LA and go skate with Lance. And, that's kind of what it was like. It was fun. It was, money was starting to trickle in a little bit.
I mean, skateboarding helped most of us learn how to travel. It feels like in the beginning of my day, the reason I traveled was to go to some new skate spot that I had seen.
Yeah.
And then when you got friends, you went on road trips, but it was for skateboarding, like almost everything. Like as a little kid, I went to Disneyland or something with the family or whatever, but like learning about like certain, etiquette and not to complain a lot and just hanging out with people in general. Traveling was a huge deal. Like, can this guy travel well? Yes. Okay. He's cool.
I mean, I point that out a lot with certain types because I grew up really fast and I was always with older people, whether it's a surf excursion or a skate excursion or going to a spot or even a Baja trip. Yeah. Can they travel well? Like I remember someone was in a room one time. Oh, I never get invited on trips. And someone said, you want to know why? This is why. And they were like, huh? They were stunned. Like the thing you're complaining, you always make us late, you're a pig, it's like, right. You're like laughing. But those are kind of some of the things like Salva's super neat and clean and organized. I'm that way. So like, it's easy to travel with me. He goes here. He wants to pack the car a certain way and I get it. So, it's cool. Let Salva pack the car.
Yeah.
And he's like the captain. Oh, I need you to do this. All right. Yeah, I got it. So everybody's got their job. Salva's bossy. I go, are you kidding, dude?
Let's just be honest.
Relax. He knows what he's doing, So you go on a trip, Salva, it's a solid trip, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I got that handy tool. He's ready. So it was cool to do stuff like that. But I understand it can prepare you for traveling. I'd been traveling a lot with my mom to my grandparents on the planes, trains, and automobiles. And then with the older guys in the 70s, before I would meet Jeff and these guys, I already had my stripes from doing like surf trips to Baja when I'm like 12 or 13 with 3 groups of people and campers and ATVs, and everybody's got a gig, right? You get, I need to take the charcoal off from yesterday because we're we're going to skin the squid and the fish to make lunch for everybody after surf, right? So if I don't do that, no one eats, kind of, almost, not
Right.
exactly, but everybody has, understand, everybody has a job.
Mm.
So I was used to that, and that's totally cool. But yeah, it can prepare you for travel for sure.
Well, let's talk about like when you went pro at Capitol Classic, right?
I did. That was my first pro contest. It was in '85.
Okay. Did you have a graphic yet or no?
Yeah, I developed a graphic with Tim Pumarta and Jim Phillips. And I think there was only 3 boards produced. They were prototypes. And I think BK has one of them.
Oh,
He used
damn.
to stay with me, and I would stay with him, when he come down, because that's just the system, right? Because we need places to stay. We stay at our friend's house.
Sure.
So there was a graphic. It had a spider web on it, a spider, and it had the ransom note lettering, and Santa Cruz used to put on their tail the Pro Series. And I wanted it spray painted out saying Swindle. I didn't want to turn pro. What I wanted was the board to generate money so I could travel, meet people, promote their brand. And then at some point I thought, oh, I'll go to college. But for some nebulous reason, which I can't fathom to find, they said, oh, you have to go pro. I said, why do I have to? And they're like, oh, you have to. I was like, ugh. So I went pro reluctantly. That was that. And then we had a falling out. And then I went back to college part-time. I did 9 units.
I have 2 8th grade diplomas.
Let's see what happened. Oh, Lance Mountain called me. He said, I heard you're quitting skating. I said, well, I'm going to college. And he goes, I want you to come over to my house. Let's have a talk. So it was just me and Lance. I thought this was very interesting. And I told him this story. He goes, oh, you shouldn't have listened to me.
Lance is the best.
Lance is the best. He goes, do you have a board? I said, no. So he goes in his house. He comes out with a full setup. And I put it together while talking to him. His future primitive board, rat bones, 169s. He goes, come on, let's skate. So it's just he and I skating. He goes, you shouldn't quit. I go, I'm in school. That's what Jewish people do. They go to school and they graduate. He says, but you're so close. I go, close to what? I said, we had a falling out. It's okay. That happens. He says, I don't want you to quit. I said, all right, I'll tell you what. I'll ride your board. I'm not quitting, but I'm still going to school. So then I see Steve Keenan and Eric Castro. They're part of the crew, with Lance and all that. And they said, hey, you should come skate this ramp in San Marino with Castro and I and Gross and Nash. So I come skating with them and I see the new Bullet products, right? The OJs, the Bullet board. Because I don't know anything because I'm done, right? I go, wow, that looks amazing. They made this? That looks great. The flip tail, this is cool. Yeah, we can get you. Spy, let me get you some stuff. Like Steve's working with Richard and Tim now, like taking pictures, team manager, wearing lots of hats. So I get a full NHS setup, and I'm skating, and I guess I'm skating good. Then I get a call from Tim Pumarta, and he goes, hey, what do you think about going to Houston, Texas? I go, like what, a street contest? No, ramp contest. I was sure. He says, we can talk about other things, more in greater detail later, but you're willing to go? I said, yeah, all right. So I left school, went to Houston, and then I had another, like, at least 2.5, 3 good years. That was it. And then when I went to the contest, I didn't place well. I'm going to tell people that right now. I did okay. What I figured from that contest was my job, because I'm not going to beat those guys. I maybe could if I tried harder or put more time, or I don't know. But honestly, my job is to get coverage as a professional ambassador, lifestyle skater. That's my thing, to make connections and that. And I did that. I got like 19th or 20th, but I'll tell you what, I got a sequence in Thrasher that Stesic took me street skating. Stesic's like, come on, we're going to go to downtown. So it's me, Lance, Cab, and Gons. We're all going downtown, street skating, doing stuff. So you can find the sequence in Thrasher. I could send it to you. It's a 4-frame shot. And there's a series of stairs that are made of brick. And there's, for lack of a better term, it's where a handrail would be, but it was about a brick wide, right? And it's up 3 sets of steps with flat platforms that go, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 feet in the next set of stairs. So let's say 3 to 4 stories high. For some reason, I walked up all those stairs, put my tail down, and made it down off a 4-foot drop. Stesic's so intuitive. He goes, go. He knew he could feel what I'm doing. He says, go. Poop, scoop. I did it 3 times. And he goes, done. Everybody else tried, unsuccessful. And Fausto goes, all right, that goes in the mag. And he was kind of bummed. I don't know if he liked me. He goes, good job. He's kind of grumpy. It's like, it's so weird. But I got coverage. That was my job.
Like I said, I'm trying to not work.
Interesting about Gons, he would have done well in the contest. He was riding the ramp. He was ripping. I go, what are you doing here? He goes, just came to hang out. And he was ripping the ramp, brother. Like, it's just one of those things. I don't know if he ever entered a vert contest, but when I get asked about him in vert, I go, he could have done top 10 easy. Really? I go, oh yeah. Yeah, he was good, man. He was really good. Just such a natural talent.
Yeah, it was interesting because I'm up here. So when Gon showed up, it seemed like he just came out of nowhere and was the guy already.
Gons came to my ramp when he was 11 years old. He took 2 buses. It took him 2 hours to get from Huntington Park. So I've known Mark a long time. I knew about Northern California because the O'Briens stayed with me after Winchester closed down. I met them at Whittier Skate City.
Okay.
And they asked my mom, hey, is it cool if Spidey comes up with us and hangs? I stayed at Corey's grandmother's house before he had a tent in the garage, and I skated all their places. I skated the ramp that Corey couldn't skate because his mom sued Michael Chantry. I think it was in Santa Cruz Mountains. It was Ross McGowan's ramp. Summit ramp, yeah. I met Craig Ramsey, DeNike, all those guys, Joel Gomez. I skated every ditch and little fish banks and scurbs and cabs ramp.
Sick. Okay. Rad.
I remember Corey and Gavin calling me, hey man, cab's holding a contest. This is before I was sponsored. I was riding hand-me-down Lance Mountain Veriflex boards and X wheels and tracker trucks or something. And you go, yeah, you should come up. So I asked my mom, is it cool? Contest is on Saturday. I cut out of school a little early and I took a Greyhound. They picked me up at the Greyhound station, the O'Briens. And I got first place unsponsored. Cabs ramp.
That was on Cabs ramp?
Yep.
Sick, dude.
It was blue and it had like the fake red tiles painted on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was killer.
That was before Joe Lopes ramp, right?
Oh yeah. Joey's would come around in 83. Yeah. And I would be already sponsored by Santa Cruz, and I got to ride Lopes' ramp because the Kiala brothers, Tony and Joe Kiala, took me there, and I was staying with them in Los Gatos. I got to surf with those guys and then skate the spots around then. Joe's ramp was really good. Joey skated it well, and he asked me, he goes, what do you think? I said, I think you're really good on your ramp, but the world is bigger than just your ramp, and if you're thinking about going pro and you avoid Upland, everybody will know that the chicken, and that's okay. He says, is it gnarly? I go, it's the gnarliest place you'll ever ride. It takes skin off. It messes with your mental capacity. Why? I go, because Joey, it's so big. It's so big. Like this ramp is like a toy compared to Pipeline, But the best guys could always skate Pipeline and everywhere else good. And when I mean the best guys, all the Powell guys, Ross Cobb, the Texans, you can see the footage. Some people would avoid it because they don't want to get hurt. But yeah, Joe's ramp was at that time was it,
That was a sick era, like backyard ramp, like what's it called? Mile High and
Mile High. I rode 2 of the contests.
Yeah, like that shit just looked like you're bringing people to a festival and raging and having a contest.
I mean, what are we gonna do? I guess that's what we do. Like when the park closed, like I always built ramps. And I built a mini ramp because Lance had the big ramp, right? So I wanted something small to ride. And I remember Fausto calling me and going, hey, I heard you have a big backyard. I said, I do. It's 40 yards wide, 80 yards deep. He's all, so I want to do, basically what he wanted to do was put up the money for me to build a big ramp. And I go, I don't want to do that. He goes, why? I said, because I want to have a small ramp to learn on and then a half pipe. And then Lance has the big one. He was a little... he wasn't too pleased about it, but I understand why, because maybe he wanted to do a contest. I just didn't want that.
Yeah.
But I had the room, so I had the mini ramp, and Lance had a big one, and then, we had our spots, and Eric Nash built a ramp several times in his backyard, and then Alex Schroeder eventually, they started cropping up, you know what I mean? But Chantry's ramp, to that point, his ramp was like going to the Upland Pipeline, except it was a half pipe.
Fuck.
It was scary, brother. Because of riding Pipeline, when I ride Mile High, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's gnarly. He's got transitions that are tight and up like 4 feet of vert or more, and it's the ramp is rock solid. You know, you could break off a piece really easy. It's fast. It can be slippery, especially in the Tahoe summer heat with dust from the forest and the dirt around. Yeah. But you're right. These people just did these things and made it happen somehow.
Did you see that footage that Mark put up on YouTube of you like skating the Spider-Man theme song? I think it was like the kiddie pool.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, Gons did that, and I've seen some other footage from Kidderminster. That's a 70s park.
Yeah.
And it had no flat bottom. And when I went there in 84, it was me, Keenan, Lucero, Lance, and Yvette. We all went up to Kidderminster because Lance was having his honeymoon in England with Yvette at the time in 84. And he goes, I want to go. I said, it's your honeymoon, dude. He goes, no, it's fine. We can go. So we all went, and it was a great time. And the one thing I noticed about the people that were skating it, no one was carving the pool.
I mean, people were skating it back and forth, not carving. Yeah.
But also there's these other connections that happen. I learned in a beach community. I was in the water since I was a kid. I learned to surf in 78. These people don't surf. There's that whole connection to surfing and skating. And when you're skating a curvilinear terrain, that comes into play. Carving. I mean, you can carve a ramp. I've done it with Christian. We've joked around. But if that's all you're riding, then that part of the knowledge is lost. So I started carving, and then the guys are going, oh, right. Okay, yeah. And there was one older guy. His name was Roger Harvey. He was still participating, and he was doing that. And he's all right, lines. I go, right, because it's a round pool. You guys are skating like a half pipe. I don't get it. You're missing all these other opportunities, like the little hips, or even you can skate the mouth of the pool, you know, doing tricks like Dwayne did in the Gold Cup. Where Dwayne would, at Upland, he'd overslide over the channel and go in and use it as a device to get back in the pool, you know? So you're using the whole pool, not just going one, done. That happens at Del Mar too. You watch people do favorite walls, but they don't use the whole pool. You know, so you're judging like what? Okay, you went back and forth, you did these tricks, but what about these other areas? So you're skating.
Yeah, that's why skateboarding so, I don't know, like, not to get into the Olympics or anything, but just judging in general is such a subjective thing. Like, that guy ripped, but that guy did stuff that no one else did. And then that guy did the best thing all day. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the things I noticed, because I've been asked to judge a contest only a few times, and I'm the worst. Don't ask me. It was like a contest at some park in Arcadia, and Lance asked me they're going to pay me. So I went there, and it was a street contest, and these people were pissed about it. I said, well, he did this and he did that. I said, he did one trick. He did one trick. Yes, it was technical. One trick does not win an entire contest. And by the way, that one trick was ugly. Okay. I judge on style. You ain't got style, your points are going down. I'm sorry. This guy won fair and square. He used the whole thing. He did a complete run. It was exciting, and he had good style, and he didn't fall. He wins. I saw the best invent this stuff. Nodis, Gons, all of them. I saw him do it. Dressen, all the guys. Third wave, Dogtown guys, wall riding. No, Jess, all of them. No, don't tell me. People who are good contest skaters off the top of my head. Billy Ruff, Lance, Gab, McGill, Tony Hawk, Jeff Phillips. I remember Lance told me at Tahoe in 85, you need a sandbag for a while, Spot. I go, what's that? And then he goes, I do it all the time. So does Billy. Basically, you make the cut, you hold back, just do enough. Once you make the cut, relax. And then when the finals, just go all out. So you don't give it all away.
Everyone keeps secrets from me.
So it's a strategy. It's like, okay. Yeah. Salva's during his time in the 70s, unstoppable. He was, Mickey Alba, another guy, great contest skater. Salva, his endurance level, they called him La Machine because he never got tired, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, he his stamina level is great. Gross, when he was an amateur, he was a great contest skater. He was very methodical, even though he probably wouldn't think he was. But Tony Alva, during his time, barrel jump, freestyle, downhill, slalom, all that. He was a great contest skater.
What was up with the Wheels of Fire video? It seems like, was it just one session that you were skating and they filmed it? And it wasn't like nowadays where you go out and you film a part, right?
No, what was up with that was there was a number of things. Let's go back further. Jeff and I get invited to go see the premiere of Animal Chin in Santa Monica, the 3rd Street Promenade. So we go in, we see it, blown away. He and I go outside. He goes, wow. I said, the game's changed. Contests don't matter. He goes, no, I know. What are we going to do? I said, well, I have a couple ideas. He goes, let's hear it. I said, we need to write a script. And we see if Richard will do it. And then he says, what about, I said, I know some people. We can rent the cameras. We can rent editing bays. We can do it. We just have to shoot it like Stacy did on beta. He goes, how do you know he shot it on that? I said, because I asked him. We live in Los Angeles, by the way. We live in the media town, brother.
Yeah, totally.
And I grew up in LA and I grew up around people in show business. I go, we can do this. We can hire people, but we need a story. People like a story. He goes, no, I agree. So there was a couple ideas. You know, one of them was the Great Skateboard Swindle based off of my ad campaign. And we were going to like ape the swindle from the Pistols and just each person had a character and make it funny and fun, because the best parts to me are the parts that Lance did, because it's attainable. It's human, right? Lance is the everyman's guy.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have a combination of that aspect of what I call realism or humanism. And, you know, I don't know if most people know this about Jeff. He was very well read. He could have been a literature professor if he wanted to, but he just never pursued that. He and I used to have a personal book club. We'd go on trips. We'd read a book. I'd read a book. Both read it. And then we exchange our opinions and disagree or get hot conversations about it. But anyhow, so he agreed that we would need to create a script. We started to come up with different script ideas and outlines. Richard was like, oh, no, we're going to hire this guy, Scott Dietrich. I'm all, who is this guy? Oh, he's from the 70s. I go, he's like a Warren Miller who never made it. Warren Miller made these movies like, okay, you know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the extreme guy of skiing and snow.
Skiing, skateboarding, go for it, you know, whatever it was, hang gliding. Okay, this guy's from that era. I told Richard, I said, do you know how much it costs to cut, film, and develop 16 mil? We can do it way cheap on beta and VHS like Stacy did. We just need to have a story. He goes, oh, no, it's going to be great. I go, it's not going to be great. I was already not in completely alignment with Santa Cruz in a lot of things. That in combination with I had a knee injury, and it's an easy way to just put me on the cutting room floor and to get rid of me, essentially.
Like film apart. We know
like I don't have a section. I totally should have a section, because we filmed my ramp. All right. We filmed the V-Bowl, which is a spot in El Monte or City of Industry. We filled these other ditches. This place called the Wave. The Wave went like this. It was a federal floodgate. It was 30 feet high. Went like this, round, went down. And so you dropped into the corner. You rode it like a wave on the round part and down and up. And filmed there. We had the federal helicopters. It got busted. It was Salva. It was rad. Did Phil's ramp. Nothing. I basically got a couple carves and rock and rolls. I can do more than that. So Wheels of Fire, I call it Wheels of Mediocrity. And of course, everybody looks at that piece is the best piece in it is the most forward thinking, which is Nodis's, which makes sense. There was also footage of me at St. Rita's doing bank skating and stuff. None of that's in there. It could have been done better. It could have been done with a story. Or, I mean, you just could have just filmed Nodis and that's it. A lot of it depends on one's taste and one's view of the world. It definitely doesn't represent me. It wouldn't represent my taste. I was more in alignment with like, let's compete with Stacy, but let's do something that's uniquely our own. Because Stacy has stepped up the game because he's put it in a story form. So I wanted to do something, I think, that was entirely different, but using Stacy's model, which is just using a cinematic model or the model of a play. We have an introduction. We have the first part of the play, the second part, third part, epilogue. We end it. My mom was a writer by trade, so I know these kind of things, even then. So, but those ideas got shot down. So you have Scott Dietrich, who's dealing in 16 mil film, and that's the end of it. And so what you have on there is what they put me in as, and they got rid of me, and that's fine because I was gonna probably leave anyway, so I don't want to be a has-been and sustain an injury. But I don't really know what the thought is on Wheels of Fire. I was also told that there's a 540 and it's a bad edit of Rob. It looks like he landed it, but I was told he didn't land it. And I'm not sure about that.
Is that the video that Tony Roberts filmed?
No. Scott Dietrich is the guy who films it.
Okay, because Tony filmed one of those videos, and apparently
Probably
he lost all
that.
the footage or something.
TR, I'm still friends with TR. We talk still. He probably, I don't know, because it's after my time. Because that thing comes out, I'm gone.
And it's interesting too, because you talk about the ideas of having a kind of a storyline and stuff.
Right,
and the next video was that, right? That's the one with Jason in the jail cell.
I never saw that because when I'm done with skating, I don't get a magazine. I don't anything. I'm just surfing, working on film sets. The only person who has really contact with me on a regular basis at that time is Grosso, because we're friends.
Oh.
We have the same like high school buddies. So, hey, Chris is getting married. You going to the wedding? Cool. Well, let's meet up and we'll go together. Stuff like that, right? Usual normal people stuff that has nothing to do with skating. Oh, Pete's having a party. It's his birthday. Should come out to the neighborhood. Oh, yeah, all right. So, but he knew where I lived in West Hollywood. I was leasing a house, and sometimes he would stay a week or so. But I didn't know anything that's going on. We never talked about it anyways.
Okay. Yeah, because after that, there was a video where Jason Jesse's in jail and everybody comes to visit him, and that led into a part. It's like Nada shows up and he's like, "What are you doing in jail?" And then it's Nas's part.
Right.
And so there was kind of like the story type thing that you're talking about.
But see how that's the timing. It's you missed the window.
Do
you understand what I'm saying? We saw Stacy's premiere. We told Novak, look, we have to do this. It's like when Jimmy Page has a new Yardbirds and it's falling apart, and he's seeing the Jeff Beck group with Rod Stewart. He's forming his ideas for Led Zeppelin. He goes, all right, this is the template. You have a power trio like Queen, like Cream, and they're playing this heavy rock, and they got a front guy, right? There's Jeff Beck only did 2 albums with that setup. And then if you look at, that's the template for Zeppelin.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, okay, the game's changed. It's like saying, oh no, I still want to use loose ball bearing wheels. I think it's a great idea. But we have a sealed bearing right here. It's better. No, it's okay. We're going to use this guy. It's not like Scott Dietrich was like this incredible visionary, like Francis Ford Coppola, and he's really cinematic and he's got these impactful ideas. He's just some guy that Novak knew, probably felt comfortable with. He thought he was going to do something great. And I don't even know if anybody saw the rushes, the music stuff could have been way better too. I definitely wanted to like have something for everybody's included, no one's excluded, but I really wanted to like, okay, let's do our own thing, but let's elevate with them. Like, yeah, because I know Dorfman's going to make a terrible video because he's got zero taste. Look at the clothes he makes. I remember when he said, oh, I'm going into clothing, Vision Streetwear, and he showed me. I go, well, that's a Sham 69 logo, but okay. And he goes, what do you think? I said, I think I write for Quicksilver because they make good apparel. And I said, you shouldn't go into apparel. Why? Unless you can have an eye for designers, you have bad taste. Look at how you dress. If you look at most of the designers, the way they dress impeccably. Paul Smith, John Varvatos, Bill Blass, all of them. Calvin Klein, Gloria, what's her name? Who made the rapper? I'm just forget her name right now. Coco Chanel. They all dress impeccably. They have good taste. So it's rare that someone dresses horribly and has a vision for other people that is in good taste.
Is it okay, I'm going to say something a little outspoken here, and you can comment or not.
Yeah.
Is Brad Dorfman still in the game like a travesty? Yeah. No, but is it insane? Like, to me, that he's selling Joe Lopes boards. Joe Lopes' family doesn't get money. He bought Schmidt Stick's name off Paul Schmidt, and then he's selling Gator boards.
Right.
It's just, to me, it's all bad.
I don't know the details of that. I didn't realize he bought this and that and the other. If the families aren't getting money, that's just terrible. I don't like, like that. And I feel like that's wrong, but that's business. Like he owns the name, but there's this part of yourself, like you don't care. Like if it was me, of course, that's how I am. I've been a band leader, and what happens is when you're a band leader, if you're just playing a bar or whatever it is, I get the biggest cut because I'm the leader, right? But everybody's all, no, take your cut. I go, it's cool. I'm all right. Let's everybody put in the same effort.
Right.
I was always that way because I felt that was fair. That's my sense of fairness. We're in the band together. Everybody split it 4 ways. If there's something that comes up where I feel it's that way, then we'll have a discussion about it. We'll vote on it. But I don't know much about that. I know that he's still in that business.
Yeah.
Anything about how he bought Schmidt's name and
it's crazy to me. But
I mean, also the money too. It's like so little. It's so little. Like you sell 100 boards, you get $3 a board. It's okay to send him $300. Some groceries or something.
Yeah.
But it's crumbs, man. They're like crumbs. It's not like, oh, I had this software deal with Oracle and I lost $500 million. It's not big cash, dude. It's petty stuff.
Okay, that's true too.
I always, like when I did reissues with Chicken, Kendall's, oh, I can't believe you're doing a reissue. I go, Jeff, 100 boards times $3 makes $300. If you'd like, I'll send you the check, or I can take you out to dinner and we can just blow it on a couple glasses of wine, a nice meal, and we'll call it a day. I go, I can't buy a house. I cannot buy a politician to change the legislation to suit my business practices. It's crumbs. It's what Meskina. It's nothing. I mean, it's like a couple $100. Even if it was a couple $1,000, that's still not enough to tilt the economic scales. But for somebody like, let's say, I don't know Lopez's family's situation, but maybe they are having a hard time. So $300 is welcomed. A couple thousand is welcome.
And also the gesture, like it's not even necessarily about the money. It's about here's an image that Price drew and you know what I mean? And Neil, like, I don't know, it's just iconic shit, like Gonza's board, but no Mark Gonzalez on it. It's
because Powell did that with Ray Bones. And I was bummed. It's like, really?
Yeah, just let it.
He's the reason why you guys are rad. Sorry. And then now I see the reissues. They've done it for a while. It's Ray's name's back on the board. So I'm stoked for it. Does Ray need the money? I don't know, but it's more like why are you taking his name off of it?
Yeah, it's like a stamp of historical importance.
It is, and it means something to me but I don't run the business. You can easily put Powell Peralta on it and someone will buy it because the graphic is the best graphic they ever did.
Yeah, the business part of skateboarding is the part that everyone told me, like,
it depends on the person. Sometimes I think maybe I should have rode for Gordon and Smith and Tracker. They're just nicer people. At that time when my first sponsor was Schmit, by the way.
Oh.
When Paul was doing business out of 2 duffel bags. Pre-door.
Damn, sick.
Yeah. Paul came up to me at Whittier and he goes, listen, I want to sponsor you. You're my first California guy. I go, wow. Okay, what does that look like, Paul? He says, I can pay your entry fee. I give you rails, stickers, and T-shirts and decks, what I got right now. And if you break the top 10, dinner's on me. And I was like, we shook on it. I got 7th. And he goes, right, let's go out to dinner. He kept his word. Love sick. Paul for that. Yeah, no, he was my first sponsor. I was his first guy in California. Everybody was Florida, right?
Mm.
And then I got sponsored by NHS, the whole business, in the winter of '83. So I called Paul, I go, listen, I got a call from Santa Cruz and I'm going to make a switch, but I want to tell you, because I understand. I did send NHS a letter with my contest stats and references so they could call like Gene Hoffman to vouch for my character, my contest stats, because they ran the contest too. So just to have some transparency with them. And it was Tim Pumardi. I was really impressed. And at the time, you got to understand, the pro team was gone. No pro team. You just had models of these guys like Olson, Salba, Dwayne. They didn't have an amateur team because everybody quit. Bob Serafin would probably been their next pro. Eddie Meek, another big O guy. There might have been some people on Flow in Santa Cruz, but they didn't have a presence.
Mm-hmm.
So I was their LA guy. And I got on board, the whole thing. I was on Independent immediately, OJ, Santa Cruz. They were distributors. So any pads or safety equipment, what do you need? I said, I need this. Okay, great. All came in a box, brother.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, all of it. Contests. Yeah, well, just let us know the contests. I said, I'll send you a list of them. They're coming up.
What pads did you wear? Rectors or?
Rector was the only game in town.
Oh, it was? Okay.
I mean, in the 70s, there was a lot of different, there was the volleyball pads,
Yeah.
And Rainbow, Hobie, whatever. And the Rector were the best. And
Okay.
as safety equipment goes, the Pro Tech came around 78. So I wore a full tech and a half tech. Flyway was a rich kid's helmet, never wore it. Didn't have the for that stuff. I could buy a Pro Tech brand new for $30. Flyway was over 70.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, rich kid helmet, not mine. School teacher salary. So another thing that I saw was there was more opportunity there. GNS had a full team. Think of the pros on GNS. Neil, Billy, Gator, Jeff Phillips. Who was in their amateur ranks is going to go pro? Chris Miller, right?
Steve Clark, no?
That's later. This is
Okay.
83. Yeah, he's later. So, and then you got Grosses riding for Veriflex. Who's on Veriflex? You got Lucero's going pro, Grosses are am, Gross is hot, and Lance, right? Losi's on Veriflex. And then Nash rides for GNS. So I got on Santa Cruz. And then what else was there? I didn't like Brad, so I didn't want to. I almost thought I could ride for Sims. I met Tom Sims through Christian and Ivan. And then Mike Fulmer, I was friends with. He told me he was working with Brad. He said that Tom's going to license the skateboard company to Brad. I was like, ugh. And so it became Sims and Vision. It was like, yeah, I don't want to ride for Sims. No way. Because Brad, and Vision just, no, thanks. So I ended up with someone that is very smart. And I'm talking about Richard Novak, who is a strong personality. He's very intelligent. And one of the questions I asked him when I went to visit, my first visit in 83, when they were on 41st Avenue, I said, I have a question. He goes, sure. Ask me any question you want. I said, how are you able to stay in business all this time from mid 80 to now? He says, oh, let me show you. So because he's been in manufacturing so long, he switched part of his production to making like grommets and bushings for wheelchairs and wheels for wheelchairs. He's a friend of medical supply business. So that's how he's able to keep the lights on at NHS. Also, it's just probably he and Tim and a receptionist was 3 people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really like skeleton crew. And I also asked him about coverage in the mag because I said, look, I didn't used to get on along with Frank Hawk, but that changed towards the end of my skating time. And there, Action Now is doing what it's doing, and Thrasher has an alternative, stronger voice. Action Now dies. Thrasher's it. And Transworld is born out of the ad, the independent ad, Built to Grind. So
how's that?
Well, some parents took offense in San Diego, and they, because it was a woman with wraparound glasses, and she had 2 independent like logos that said Built to Grind. So they found it offensive at that time, and that's what I was told was that's how Transworld was born out of that.
So they looked at that and said, we need to make a clean cut magazine.
We just don't want our kids to get exposed to this. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because it was like we always talked about skate and create was them, skate and destroy is Thrasher. Like it was just
and I don't get into that. That's I understand both sides, because it's America still, and freedom of expression. So cool. They did that, and that's great. It's just more coverage for me. I remember being at one of the Del Mar contests when I was on Santa Cruz. They're handing out stickers. I go, saw this, and I go, cool. They go, hey, a Santa Cruz guy has our sticker on the board. I said, oh, I want coverage. That's my job. And I expect to get coverage. All right. And they hand me this like trackers only sticker. And I said, oh, I won't do that. If I rode for you, would that be okay? That lacks integrity. And they put their sticker back. I'm cool with this, with supporting the mag. You support me, give me some coverage, and that my sponsors. And I said,
Right.
but I will not put a trackers only over my independent stickers. I ride for them. They trust me to represent them. No, I took that shit seriously, even at 16, because my father was a professional boat racer and each sticker and patch was a dollar sign attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that part, I even got into a MOFO one time at a contest. He was just like, "Hey man, are you kidding? You have the sticker on your board." I said, "Whoa, let's talk over here because we're friends." I said, "So you're saying that I shouldn't have this sticker and you're gonna deny me coverage? Is this kind of friendship we have?" I said, "There's room for 2 magazines." That's like saying, Popular Science and Science Today can't exist. Is that true? He's all, well, I said, I get it. It upsets you. I understand because skateboarder fell out. You stuck it out and that's cool. So you can thrive and I can do this. And he goes, all right. I said, are we still friends though? I want to know. If we're not friends, that's okay. And he's like, no. It's like, all right.
This is MOFO. Recording this on Air Force One. I accidentally got on the wrong plane on my way to wherever I was going. But I'm hiding in a closet, but I got a text from Schmitty and he wanted to know something about Spidey, Rick de Montrond. And this is what I have to say. This is what comes to mind when I think about Spidey. Integrity, determination, aggressiveness, persistence, passionate, punk as fuck. At least back in the old days, we're all getting old, so we're punk as arthritis or whatever. Emphatic, charismatic, enigmatic, cultured, and he's my friend. Love you, Spidey. Bye-bye.
Ding!
We didn't talk about, but you're credited with inventing basically the eggplant to tail. Is that true?
That's the only thing. That's the only trick I ever invented. Yeah. And how that came about, it was a strange thing. Neil, we were street skating this curve that might have been like, I don't know, about a foot high or a little above somewhere in Huntington Beach. And sometimes he'll set parameters on things. So he's all, okay, we have to make up a trick, but it can't be higher than the curb. Could you imagine that? Like you can't, in other words, you're stuck between the floor and this horizon. You have to make something up.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun? It's funny, right? So I went up to the curb and I did, it's like an eggplant to tail. So he goes, all right, that counts. So I thought, well, why don't I try it on a ramp? So I tried on my little ramp, and then eventually I was able to do it on a vert ramp. And then Grant took the sequence at Sellers Ramp. And, it was a nice honor to be with another skate brother who I respect, Tommy Guerrero. I had the sequence, I think, on top, and he had his on the bottom, and we were both featured in Tony Hawk's article Beyond.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, it was a great honor to first be with Tommy in a sequence, because I love Tom's. He's a great dude.
You have to.
I used to stay with them when I'd go to the city. He and Tony,
Tommy's my guy.
Yeah, he's lovely people, and there was a time where I spent time with those guys, right? Because that was the time. And yeah, so that's the only trick I ever invented. I've not invented another thing ever since.
Is this a stupid question? Who had the best inverts?
No, it's not a stupid question. It depends on what era you're talking about.
In that era that you were talking about, skating with Neil. I'll give you a hint.
So
you were skating with Neil.
We're talking the entire decade of the 80s?
Yeah.
It changes over time. You know what I mean? It's just like Dwayne had a good invert. Eddie had a good invert.
But not as good as those guys.
It changes, though. You got to see how it morphs. Mickey, Cab, Eddie O'Gara, they all had good inverts, right? Daryl Miller. Okay, so then we get to the early 80s. All right. Who is the prototype of like Hand Plant City? Neil Blender. Right? He is the premier person because his improvisation and creativity around the art form is incredible. I'm sure Grosso's done this in one of his love letters. Yeah, Neil, for sure. But there's other people like Lance. Cab had a wicked frontside invert. Gator did this thing called a roto rooter. I don't see any people doing that.
What's that?
It almost looks like an eggplant. It's hard to describe because, it was called a roto rooter. But I remember seeing him doing it at Del Mar. It looks like it's almost the opposite of an eggplant. It's tricky.
Oh,
whoa. Whoa. You might be hard pressed to find a photo or a sequence of it, but I remember him doing them.
Okay.
Todd Joseph doing the layback roll around. I've never seen anybody do it quite as good as Todd. Alan Losey.
You have Jeff Phillips. He's got to be in there, right?
Phillips is another guy.
Phillips 66.
Yeah. Billy Ruff had a good tuck knee invert. John Grigley was a good hand plant guy. Look at those St. Pete photos and, Del Mar before he messed his arm up, and even after he was still Monty. Gibson. Because now we're getting into, it's like jazz at that point. It's like Coltrane, Coleman Hawkins. They all have a style, but they're playing like Over the Rainbow a little differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're all valid and they're all beautiful. So it's hard. But Neil's super influential. Yes. With all his woolly mammoth and of course, Sad Plan happens at Sadlands. I don't know who invented it, but Jeff did a good one. Lance, all of them did it. That rode Sadlands. Lester.
And just kind of like
Mike
taking
Smith.
an invert and like holding it and tweaking it and those kind of
Mike
things.
Smith. So if we go to that point, Chris Stropel in the 70s before concave.
I use that bad word, but
he was the first that I know of to do an extended hand plant.
Strope.
You look at Skateboarder magazine, because remember, Bobby Valdez has his hand on the wall or the tile. Right? And Jay was doing them and sometimes landing him. Adams, right? The little half tracks. You get to Stropel, he's got his hand on coping. And he's like this. And you're like, wow, how magnificent is that? I need to do that now.
Power.
Yeah, power. Doug DeMont Morency did some good hand plants. Bowman, super stylish ones. Front side, go look at those photos. Perfect form. It's beautiful looking. The aesthetics are in place, Andrecht, right? I mean, come on. Neil, of course, took that to the next extent, flipped him. Eric Gresham would go extreme on him to the point where he'd be up there holding him so long and flip over and land on the wall and come out of it anyways. Wow. Like, who does that?
Yeah, so sick.
So, just holding and flipping, the boards come off your heels, you come down, flop onto the wall, and go up the next wall. Come on.
I think what I always heard was that Jeff Phillips was the only one that could do a 540 on the next wall after an invert. Like he could do it.
Yes, because of the momentum with which he would swing them under him. And he had an incredible pump. You watch him pump, like Christian could pump like nobody. All the best guys had incredible timing with their pump, but Phillips could pump right out of a hand plant and do a 540. Because he had such incredible G forces, because you look at the invert, when he swings them under such a way that he had enough momentum to pull that off, which is no easy feat.
Fucking so sick. I got this little thing called This or That. We're winding down. Pie or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Rocky Road or chocolate chip?
Chocolate chip, organic.
Black Widow or Tarantula?
Tarantula.
Stephen King or Vonnegut?
Vonnegut.
Black Flag or Circle Jerks?
Black Flag with Keith Morris, Circle Jerks with Keith Morris. I just have to make that distinction.
Rap or reggae?
Reggae.
Grind or slide?
Sliding.
Jolly Mamba or Phillips 66?
That's two. This is a tough one. Jolly Mamba.
GSD or Jinx?
Jinx.
Good Buddy or the Everybody?
Good Buddy.
Madonna or Champagne?
Madonna. This looks better.
Hawk or Hosoi?
Hosoi. Sorry, Tony.
Faction or JFA?
Neither. I'm a jazz guy.
Well, who?
Yeah, no, all that
Jazz?
stuff. Well, like I lived through all that, but that wasn't where my musical tastes weren't there.
Well, true or false, your feet are pictured on Skate Rock Volume 2.
I am. MOFO shot it at Cabs Ramp. But if you ask me what I was listening to during that time,
it was not the Faction.
It was Elmore James, Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, Hank Sr. Echo and the Bunnymen, the Smiths, because I was a guitar player. I started taking lessons in 74. Like I wanted to be Jeff Beck when I was a little kid. So the Faction wasn't in my, if you're talking like what we consider punk rock, that sort of ended for me like around 80 or 81. I like the Sex Pistols.
Sex Pistols were kind of your Beatles, right? As far as
No, the Beatles were my Beatles.
Well, yeah, but I mean as punk rock.
Right.
I mean, you gave a lot of Sex Pistol references for your graphics and everything.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's true. Well, that's part because Lance made a caricature of me, and then I had a second shot at a board because they offered me a board again.
Oh.
I had two models. The Pistols, this is it for the Pistols. I liked them because the record was amazing. And I learned about them in the 70s because I grew up in LA. So when I went to go see the first reunion tour, some friends of mine from the snowboarding industry, hey, they bought me a ticket. And I was already signed to Capitol Records at this time, mind you. And I'm at the Palladium listening and going, Spide, you're stoked. Give me a minute. I'm listening, just closing my eyes, listening. I go, you know what? I'll tell you after the show. And we went to eat. I go, here's the thing. They wrote great songs. Those are great pop songs. Go listen to the arrangements, the parts. Also, Chris Thomas, the producer. Do you know who he produced before he produced them? Queen and Elton John.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. They didn't have some joker behind the board, right? This guy was the real fucking deal. And I remember he was like, I jumped at the chance to produce them. And you listen to the Pistols. I asked because I became friends with Jonesy through being in LA and other friends, Pamela DeBar and so forth, Michael DeBar. I said, when you recorded the album, what did you do? I mean, there's YouTube things on. He says, I had a blackface twin reverb, turned it up to 10, it was in another room. So Cookie and I cut tracks. And I doubled and tripled the guitar tracks.
Wow.
Right. He liked Boston a lot. And he also, I like Boston. I had the record. There's another guitar player of his, a favorite of his was a favorite of mine, Mick Ronson, who I got to see play in 88. Whether he's as good as those guys or not doesn't matter. What happened as an artistic project, amazing sonically. And then you have John in the corner writing lyrics. You're not sure what he's saying. Can you imagine that? And you got this guy who you don't like the way he washes his feet, but he was kind of like a Beatle guy, Glenn Matlock, and he wrote great tunes, great lines. So But listen to Pistols album. Yeah, call it whatever you want. Those are great pop songs.
Sure.
The hooks are strong. The message is just, it's just like Bob Dylan and during his protest era. It's just cutting. Masters of War or any of those kind of tunes that Dylan wrote that were topical social issues,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole other podcast on music, probably. Yeah. Like, is that kind of what are you doing now? You're in a band, obviously.
I've been a professional songwriter since 1996. I've worked as a session guy on and off. I've made money from music. I've made money from real estate. I have a real estate license. I've done licensing with brands in action sports. So it depends.
Nice. What's up with the Gentle Orchestra, though?
Gentle Orchestra is my band. I produced, wrote, arranged, and played many of the instruments on the album. Not all of them, but it's listed. And I listed my friends who were session guys, which I paid. And then that's my group. That's me.
Sick, dude.
Songwriting. Yeah, it's all me.
I was stoked when
did the videos for it. I directed them and I curated the footage and worked with the rendering guy and used my artistic visual film background to do that. I'm good at putting a whole holistic artistic package together and then finding like, oh, you're good at rendering. I need you basically because I don't know how to work the software program. You know what I want to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm in the visual, so I get it. Like I'm always like, I can't do this, but I know what I want it to be.
So I'm working with the mix engineer, and I'm like, can you pan the keyboard this way and put the strings over here? Because I've been in it so much. And he's like, Oh, wow. Okay. You have to be able to hear it, which is different than seeing it. So I worked with a great guy. I had a great guy mastered. His name was John Golden. You can look him up. John Golden used to do albums for the Mamas and the Papas and all these kind of things as a mastering guy. And then in the early 80s, what's his name from Black Flag, the guitar player? Greg
Ginn?
Yeah, Greg Ginn brought some music to him, and he was getting turned down because he wanted to get his music mastered, right? So he could press vinyl. And John Golden was the only guy who says he listened to it the whole way. He goes, yeah, come back Monday, it'll be done. And so then John Golden started to do that type of music for quite a while, like the Sonic Youth and stuff. And I read about him. I sent him my record. I spoke to his wife, and he says, I haven't heard music like this in 25 or 30 years. This is amazing. I'm going to enjoy doing this. The reason I sought him out because he has the ears for strings and brass. Everybody that was referred to me to master did like loud 90s guitar albums. No strings, no brass. They have no ears for it. Dying art in a way. You got to,
Oh,
so
that's
John Golden was super rad. He could do the punk rock stuff, but he could do stuff that other people just couldn't do, like those Van Morrison records that you heard in the 70s and stuff. That's all his mastering.
okay. Sick.
Yeah.
Do you have like a pinnacle moment in music?
When I got signed to Capitol Records was one of them. And the other is there's little ones along the way. I played with the Frozdots. We were signed to Sub Pop. That was a good band. My tenure playing in the African American neighborhood of South Central LA from 89 through about 95, that's where I learned to play in a band and be a musician, was in the ghetto, playing guitar.
Okay.
Being in little bands with retired people that played with T-Bone Walker or Howlin' Wolf or Muddy or Jimmy Rushing, and I was playing in groups that had a brass section, keyboard, and 2 featured singers. And, those experiences definitely changed it's like I didn't start a band in a garage. I got a job working finally in that neighborhood, in that community, and playing in Baptist churches. And you're playing for people, first of all. So I didn't have the whole thing, oh yeah, how many people showed up to my gig? I'm working. I had a girlfriend once said to me, oh, I bet you at those gigs. I said, you know what? I play to people that work all week, the jobs that no one likes. Bus driver, truck drivers, sanitation people, hard. All they want to do, they want to have a good time, laugh, be with their friends, be with their lady, and dance. And I'm working. If I don't play well, they tell me. If I play well, they let me know. They hug me, they kiss me, they give me money, put it in my pocket because they're appreciative. So when I came through that, my engagement in playing music was very different. It's more like a working fashion.
Okay.
And then I put that together with my artistry, so I would treat people well, like they were in the band, through my experiences of playing in churches and stuff. But that was a high point. I met this guy who used to play with Jimi Hendrix in the South. His name was Richard Youngblood, and I heard about him in the ghetto for like 4 years. And everybody says once in a while he comes by. He came by one Sunday, and I met this man, and he tore this cheap Hondo bolt neck Les Paul guitar up like you ain't seen nobody, like Jimmy would. And he did all the tricks, right? And I got to sit and talk with him for an hour. I bought him a beer and a sandwich. And he was a street hustler. He was selling hubcaps, whatever he could do. And it was sad. I tried to hook him up with a lawyer. I couldn't do it. He's just one of those guys on the streets, pre-cell phone. I couldn't get him a prepaid phone then, that was a highlight. Being around my ex-girlfriend's aunt, Bonnie Bramlett. You can look her up. She was signed to Atco. She wrote with Leon Russell, Superstar. She was a mentor of mine for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, being around her. Being around Luther Russell. He's a great singer-songwriter. He taught me the craft of songwriting. And then making the album The Gentle Orchestra with everybody. And do you know who O is?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, O lived with me and my mom for 5 years. So he was like an older brother to me. So O messaged me while I was making the record. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm making an album. He says, do you mind if I come up? I said, I was a little hesitant. I was like, I don't know. He says, what do you mean? I said, I don't think you'll like it actually. Because, I know of his work and fluff and that. And he goes, come on, I just want to hear what you're doing. And he came up, and he was up almost every session. He had a ball. He was like, I go, no, I don't know. He's pacing around the studio. I go, you all right? He goes, I haven't heard music like this in 25 years. This is amazing. It's like love. It's like John Lennon. It's like George Harrison. This is really cool. It is? You like it? He goes, I love it, dude. This is amazing. And, I know how Otis, he can be snarky, but I was surprised he liked it. That was it, and after that, he was a part of my process. He's on the album doing theatrical vocals, playing tambourine, playing xylophone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we don't know how long people are going to last. Sometime after that, about a year and a half, he leaves us, So I was blessed to have him there with me.
He just came by the mag that year,
yeah. Okay.
3 months before he passed. He was touring with Jay Mascis. I don't know what.
What he does, he tour manages for them, and he does a lot of the music videos on his phone. By the way,
right. I didn't know him great, so I'm not going to lie or anything. But from everything I heard, he was just this guy that brought everyone together. He connected the dots in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I've had such. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Really good one. Can we end with maybe a key or philosophy to getting old, like something that you utilize as we get older?
I never think about age is the first thing. The best thing you can do is clean up your diet, clean up your mind, get outside, touch the earth, be with the brothers and the sisters, from surfing, live aloha, whatever that means to you, kindness. Life gets short, people leave and then you're like, so gratitude is a good way to start, I'm grateful for all the people I met in skateboarding. I'm grateful for all those people that helped me out. And, the cool thing is I still have those friends today, but some of them leave, so when you have the opportunity, spend some time with them. Lance had his 60th. My friend Keenan Fu from Maui, we got together.
Sick.
He was so psyched to see us all. Well, of course we're going to show up, dude. You're Lance, you know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
Family, because I never think about it. I met him when I was 14. We're still friends.
He's such a humble guy too. He doesn't know how important he is to all of us.
But there's funny things that you don't know about people. Like he says he wanted to surf and I go, there's no waves. I'm going to go swim. He goes, I like to snorkel. I go, I didn't Lance snorkel. Yes, you're laughing, right? Like Lance snorkels?
Yeah.
He says, I have everything. I said, come down. Laguna's great for that. We got lagoons and stuff. I took him to my friend's little private spot because, the property. And he goes, no, we got the keys. Don't worry. He's just out there 2 hours. He's like, oh, I saw this. I saw the fish. I go, that's cool, man. Enjoy. Go ahead. But I didn't know my dear friend likes to snorkel. Now I know. I go, hey, man, come on, come down.
He and I have that in common. That's one of my favorite things.
You're a snorkeler. All right, you always have to go snorkeling.
Yeah. Hawaii, let's go.
Yeah, you didn't know, right? I didn't know this until like a year and a half ago. Man likes to snorkel.
well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your stories, dude. I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It was fun. Enjoy. Have a good day.
You too. See ya. Bye. Bye.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Oro Coffee. That's some damn good coffee. Order 1 or 6 bags at orocoffeeroasters.com.
Y'all like music? Because you're listening to SMFM.
Hey, good people. You know how it goes. This week I'm bringing you Derogatory with their song Slept On. And don't be scared. It's only hardcore.
Are you trying to get away from us?
I'm trying to get away from the mother shooting at me, man. I didn't know.
Who's shooting at you?
Anybody, man. You know how fools is.
that 209.
What you bitch ass motherfucker, you are dummy, bitch, you are not bitch.
Shout out to everyone Isaiah and all the other bands there.
All right. That heavy was the band Derogatory from Stockton, California. And good people, they wanted me to let you know that they are representing Stockton Hardcore. That video for the song Slept On was filmed at Wildwood Skate Shop in Lodi, California. So if you ever find yourself stuck in a Lodi again, why don't you pop into Wildwood Skate Shop and you might see some of the gentlemen from Derogatory ripping up the terrain. You want to know more about them? You find them on Instagram at derogatory_HC. Okay? I chose that song because it threw me for a loop. It had the heavy ass intro, and it dropped out and had this super produced hip hop beat, and then back into the slamma jamma. And I like getting thrown for loops. Throw me for a loop. Send me your demos. Send me your music. Alright? This might be some stuff you're only going to hear on SMFM via Talkin Schmit. Thank you all. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Talkin Schmit. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. When you subscribe, you'll get notifications every Tuesday of new episodes the minute they become available. Also, please leave reviews and a 5-star rating. It's the best way to help the show grow. All of the episodes will always remain free, but if you would like to help support the show, you can do so at TalkinSchmit.com, where you can pick up some merchandise like t-shirts, beanies, hats, and stickers. The website has an entire archive of all of the episodes, with extra photos and videos. Email us with any suggestions, comments, or ways that the show may have improved your life at talkinschmit@gmail.com. All interviews are conducted, edited, and produced by Schmitty. The intro music is Mary's Cross by the band Nature. A very special shout out goes to the executive director, Sharal Camisa.
Shout out.
Love it! This is Talkin Schmit, where the Rolodex is deep, but the conversation is deeper.
Keep the wheels greased.